Hi guys, my name is Peter from oversample.as and welcome to another tutorial. Today we have something very interesting. This is a remake of DROELOE See Through Me song, and before we get into how I made it, I'm gonna playback that for you. Yeah, so it's pretty accurate, not 100% accurate, but pretty similar. So we have 4 layers, but before we get into this, first things first. If you want to record some tracks when you don't want to buy it, you can actually, like, for learning purposes, I don't know if this is legal, but I just recorded a track directly from Spotify. Oops, I used Voicemeeter Banana, and this is really useful when you want to record the output of your system, basically of the Ableton. So I'm able to record everything that comes from Ableton. If I change it here to Voicemeeter Banana, I can also record some Windows sound to that, and that's how I recorded a Spotify song. So this is very handy, and I just dropped it here. I set the tempo, this is 140, and I started reconstructing that. So I basically started from the drums, because the drums were pretty easy. We have kick and a snare and some hi-hats and percussion. Very interesting rhythm. So what samples I used samples from my sample pack. So if you didn't get it, you can get that on oversample.as. This is a subside sample pack. So very interesting samples inside. Okay, so we have that drum loop if you're interested. Obviously that remake is available in the description under a download link. So we have some percussion, some hi-hats, and we have a main sound which is not playing. Why? Oh. So we have 4 layers. One of them is, 3 of them are Serum, and one of them is Omnisphere. So let's go to the first one. Yeah, so it's not very complex. There's some automation that's the most complex part, I would say. So I used a basic mini wavetable, and I used the third waveform, which is kind of like a square wave, but it's not so harsh. It's kind of more subtle square wave. So the first LFO is modulating the level of the oscillator 1, and this is going on a speed of 1/4. So this is one layer with some effects on it. I'm gonna recreate this later. And this is another Serum, which is going double of the speed of the first one. Here is a custom wavetable. This is a saw wave pitched 1 octave up, and it's being modulated by this LFO. So it's not the same, it's not this shape repeating, but there's like twadon, 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 twadon. You know, this is like twadon, twadon, the different shape, the different rhythm. Now we have Omnisphere. This is very interesting. This is a boy's core. I don't know how to pronounce that, okay? Boy's chore, core, soloist. Oh, so this is a preset with some post-processing, and also another Serum instance. In this case, this is, I guess it's a custom wavetable. This is a saw wave with some sync on it, and the same modulation as in the second one. So we have also some 808s, and this is a preset from Virtual Riot BS, dedicated sub, really nice sub. Okay, so let's recreate these sounds. So let's start from the first one. Let's drag these chords there, and also the chords look like that, and also they sound like that. Okay, so for the first layer, as I said, we are gonna use basic mini, and it's gonna be that square kind of wave. And we are gonna use the first LFO to modulate the level of the first oscillator, but we're gonna draw the shape like that. To adjust these two here, you click and hold Alt and you just drag them and they both adjust. Let's attach that to the level. Okay, so we got this so far. Okay, so when the chords are playing, there is you may hear that spike in volume. There's basically, it sounds like a sidechain, but I guess it's not sidechaining everything, so it may be just a volume automation on the sound. So let's take a listen here. This is really hard sidechain. It's not sidechaining everything, I guess. So I just decided to use LFO2 and modulate this same knob here, but in this case we are going to the opposite way. -100, and I'm gonna just draw the shape like that. And also let's turn on envelope mode, so when the chord hits, it will trigger that automation and there not gonna be any sound at the beginning of the chord. Yeah, so now let's go to the effects section. I use hyper dimension with hyper on the maximum here to give that kind of detuned and delayed sound. And also I didn't use mix. I mean, I didn't use dimension here. So another effect is a delay. This is ping pong delay with just a little bit less of the mix down. It's on the default settings. It's totally fine. And then we have a compressor, multi-band compressor, OTT you may call it. But not on release on this position because it is really compressed right now. So I'm just gonna push that release up so the chords are more dynamic. And then we have reverb, some default settings with the low cut and high cut there. We have some more mix even. And we have EQing because these chords, that synth here, there's like a wow effect, it's talking. So I just decided to use the EQ to give a little bit of that effect. So let's switch from that shelf to this middle, push the gain up to around here, and I'm gonna use LFO1 to modulate the frequency. Let's position it around there, maybe. We can hear that wow kind of thing. Okay, so that's basically the first oscillator. You can see some EQing there. This is basically because we have sub bass stored under it. So I just made space for this bass in this region, and here I made space for the second layer. So let's now recreate the second layer. I'm just gonna simply duplicate this one. So again, the same thing, but different modulations. So we have a default waveform. This is a saw wave. So I'm gonna just modulate the level of the first oscillator with some LFO. So we're gonna use different shape, as I said before, like that. And then another one, gonna go like this. This oscillator has been also pitched 1 octave up. And now effects. There are only 2 effects. There's only compressor and hyper dimension. I used again full hyper and 50% around of the mix of the dimension, and we have a dimension size maxed. So it's kind of like a reverb or something. And then we have compressor with multi-band again and a release push to the right. And there's no filter movement. And we have another layer, which is that omnisphere. And all I can show you is what is the post-processing. So I added some EQ. So it gets more, it's more top layer. And we have LFO tool, which I used to emulate that volume automation, which I used in Serum before. It's basically the same thing. It kind of looks different. It should look like that. And we have OTT. And we have utility. So what utility does is it creates that spike of the volume when the chord hits. This is the same thing, but I used in Serum. Oh, it's actually there. Okay, and the last layer. So I'm gonna just show you because this is actually the same as the second layer. This is a saw wave with 2.64% of synth, and that's basically all. We have the same LFO modulation, we have the same volume modulation again here, and it's not pushed all the way down. Let's compare. It's more like a compressed kind of soundy here. So, and we have that hyper dimension again, full mix, full size, 50% of the mix. And that's basically just the layers. I guess that's all, right? So yeah, thank you for watching. Sidechain that subscribe button. See you in the next one.